my God!
We know that there's a human underneath, and yet you don't know his identity.
You don't know if he's trying to do this for fun or trying to get you. It's like a boogeyman situation.
Now, some of you may be scared of clowns. But this clown, who may lure you in and murder you, is terrifying. And he has multiple victims.
When a man was gunned down by someone wearing a clown mask.
And I will be explaining his murders in ways that have not been explained. Stick around for this one. Alright, now shout out to y'all for having y'all snacks. We got some people that have been DMing me. Well, shout out to y'all for DMing me y'all snacks. I like when y'all do that. Shout out Corey X Kenshin.
The crotch is just wearing out, that's all.
But let's get into this video. Clowns.
I just started off in your world.
Now, this guy named John was actually a lovable person.
Everybody from the neighborhood knew John Gacy.
He seemed very personable, very friendly.
But he could turn on a dime.
People didn't expect this behavior from him at all when they found out the sick things he done. There was this guy named David, and he told David, yeah, I'm going on this boat ride. We can have fun on this boat. Now, by any means, this was clever to lure him in, but he played his cards right. So they was out on the boat in this water surrounded by a lot of trees. When they got out the boat and it was in these woods, things became very frightening for David.
Well, you can be walking down the street, and if Gacy lay eyes on you, you have now become his next victim.
And David seen how John's behavior switched. He became this murderous clown. But he didn't murder him this time, or ever. What he did was just assaulted him. Now, I said just because it could have ended off worse for David. He was assaulted, and I know that's very traumaful, and I know that brings trauma in someone's life. David got lucky and survived. He had a few ways how he can lure his victims in. 1,
Would gain their trust.
he knows you, which would make the job very, very easy. 2, he'll promise you a job.
There's a construction site affiliated with this man.
And that way, when y'all all alone, he has you to himself. Because maybe he was gonna say, yeah, come over.
I'm getting sick to my stomach.
I want to interview you first, or let me know how you is as a person first before I hire you. Or 3, he'll just simply pay you for sex.
To this day, I still don't know how my brother ended up at John Gacy's house.
Maybe you've seen this boy?
But you know, after he lured you in his house, it's nothing like a good old clown trick. Which would be his favorite, handcuffs. So he would get these handcuffs and he would show them.
Play it on your girlfriend, is that?
And he puts it on himself, John. He want to make sure you know that these handcuffs are actually on. And of course, that you know that they're real. So once he turn around, he want you to put them on him.
Make sure they're locked now.
He turned to where the hands is not facing the person in front of him no more, to where he's actually facing the person. And he does this little trick to where you don't know how he took it off, and voila, handcuffs is off.
Hold this for a second.
But wait, he want you to do it. He said all you have to do is just pop that lever on the handcuffs, and that's how it will uncuffed. And the victims being so vulnerable, they're like, oh really? Yeah? That's how you do it? They put on the handcuffs. And they know that they cannot get him off. He lied. So literally while you're struggling, he's just looking at you, knowing what he's about to do to you next. How he would take these handcuffs off him for the trick was he would actually have the key in between his fingers the whole entire time, to where you can't see it, but it's there. Now you're stuck in these handcuffs, no way out. One of his first victims was named Donald. He lured him to the house saying, I want to show you something that I show at all of my events. Come to my house. And then they watched this film, and this film was off. It was very weird. And then after the film, he said, you have to do it with a man before you do it with a girl. So you could already imagine what type of film that they was watching. While they was watching all of these shows, he was giving them a lot of drinks, and a lot of drinks, so he wouldn't be completely controlled of himself, of course. Assaulted, murdered. He was gone. but his body was found, of course. So a lot of the people that you're currently seeing, he will offer them money to engage into some of these activities, which is very, very crazy and creepy, knowing that once he have you, you're stuck and you not going nowhere.
He woke up and there was a large life-size clown standing in front of his bed.
Some of them, like this guy named Edward, was able to call the cops and say, yes, this guy assaulted me, and he was arrested. But of course, he was then freed. Now, what they noticed about John is his personality would switch up.
There's 2 people in his body, multiple personalities.
He would have these mixed personalities in between the days. And they tried to give him medication, and they tried to give him therapy. None of it worked.
An individual with multiple personalities can change their body chemistry with their thoughts.
No wonder why he loved his job so much. But one day, this guy named Timothy was at a bus stop. He somehow got him into his car and he toured this guy Timothy all around Chicago, showing him a lot of beautiful things. They having a good time out and about. Then he brought him home and said, you know what, you can spend the night here, and then I'll bring you back to the bus stop tomorrow. But what happened this night was pretty weird. What John would say is, I was asleep, I opened my eyes and I seen Timothy over my bed, standing over me with a knife. And we would wrestle with the knife. Long story short, I ended up winning the knife over and hitting him with the knife. And then he would begin to not breathe less and less and less. After we had that battle we was having with that knife, then I decided to go in the kitchen, cook some eggs, bacon. I was hungry after, and I set the kitchen table for 2 after, even though I know that his body beginning to breathe less and less. So after, I got his body somewhere in a crawl space in my house, and that's where he stayed the whole entire time, and nobody knew. Now you have to understand something that make this addictive for him. During the time when John had this knife in his hand, doing whatever it was to him with this knife, you know, when he heard Timothy gagging and gasping for help and air, he said that it felt like an orgasm. Not only that, it was becoming like this addicting thrill that he got out of it, so he would want it again and again and again.
Tonight in News Extra, the man who committed what may be the crime of the century. His name is John Wayne Gacy. 33 innocent people.
Making him a completely different type of person.
Gacy was convicted of murdering more people than anyone else in U.S. history.
29 bodies buried in that house of his on Summerdale.
But wait, they do have more survivors. Cause that guy David wasn't the only one to survive. Another guy named Anthony survived. And he would lure Anthony into his house, of course, like he do with all of the other people. And he would also offer this guy some drinks, which he would proceed to drink. And remember that handcuff trick that I told you earlier? Well, he tried this handcuff trick to him.
All of a sudden, a handcuff was on one of my wrists.
But what this guy Anthony ended up doing is slipping his right hand out of the handcuffs, and he was free. And he was able to get him on the ground, John the clown, and pin him.
Did a good double leg takedown on him, wrestling move, and he went down to the floor, and I cuffed him.
He was actually on a wrestling team, so he was able to do this really good. And the clown smiled and said, you know, you was one of the first and only people who was able to do this to me. And he survived. John one following day saw this guy walking and he offered him for marijuana. This guy agreed. So the clown said, come here, come in the car, come get it. And I guess he showed him the marijuana so he can believe that you actually gonna get this. As soon as he got in the car with a cloth, making him unconscious really fast. I thought that was off of a TV show. I didn't know that was real, but apparently this stuff is real. So while he was unconscious in the back seat or in the front seat, wherever this happened at in the car, he drove him to his house. Then after he was assaulted, the clown dumped his body near some water, but he woke up and he went running to the police station and tried to give a description of this guy, but really couldn't remember. But the police wrote down everything that he could remember, and they didn't investigate this at all because he was a homosexual. That's why they ignored the case. So if he was straight, they probably would have took further actions. But this victim was different. He began to obsess on getting this guy caught. So he would stalk him every day. What he would do is he drove this specific car and he remembered that it was around this airport, so he would go to this airport area every day looking for that car. And his stalking behavior ended up getting him arrested, but he got out on bond. And also the police investigators was looking for a lot of missing people, and they remembered, oh yeah, this victim gave us this information about this guy who's creepy, let's investigate him, which they did do. And they ended up searching his home and finding a lot of human remains, and then he was arrested. So shout out to that victim.
Bro, this guy had 27 bodies in his basement, and the only reason why he got caught is because he couldn't fit no more down there, so he threw it in a river.
Just in case y'all don't think these clowns is just always fun and games, just recently, like 5 days ago, this lady named Sheila Keen, she dressed up as a clown, bought balloons and flowers, and went to this lady house named Marlene. And then as soon as Marlene opened the door, she was shot. She didn't get back up. She was unalive. Now, this is not a story that I dig deep into, but I just knew recently a lady was dressed up as a clown and murdered somebody. So I just wanted to put that out there, that clowns have to always be untrusted.
I just